We've now seen both past and relative present to their conclusion. Now it's time to sit the two side by side and see how things have changed. Final Fight takes place in Metro City, a city teetering on destruction, ruled by crime of both blunt and cerebral natures, with one gang at the centre of much of the devastation. Whilst the devastation is very much present in Final Fight, with its board of windows, graffiti, walkway dumps, and constant encounters with its violent dwellers, it never really takes on a dire feel due to the bright saturated colours and character designs. This betrays the world with a slight cartoony feel, a violent cartoon, but a cartoon nonetheless. Final Fight Streetwise takes place in Metro City, a city teetering on destruction, ruled by crime of a primarily blunt nature, but now a new silent destructive force spreads throughout Metro City, a new drug known as Glow. Metro City is a bleak, featureless hellhole, closed businesses, dilapidated bulletins, husks of bulletins, rubbish abound, and crime on every corner. This concrete pit of destitution's bleak nature is backed by a colour palette of mainly browns and greys, which maintains the overall filthy feel to the city. However, a total car crash ensues when Glow is introduced and its users step forth. It only gets more severe as time moves on, and the previous greyness is washed away by the cartoonish onslaught. Well, things have changed quite a bit, haven't they? Gone is the cartoonish portrayal of criminal devastation, replaced instead with a more gritty, serious version. To a point. Streetwise's version is a more than valid one. Even back with the original, reading the intro text, you can easily see Streetwise's version of Metro City. Where it all falls apart, of course, is with Glow, which fits neither universe. The original Final Fight, whilst cartoony in presentation, was rather grounded in terms of the world and threats contained within. Even though the point of this is to compare the first and latest entries, I was too curious to not have a look and see if this monster madness was at the very least born of the series' trajectory. And from what I can see, it's as out of left field for the franchise as it was for Streetwise itself. If we remove Glow from the equation, I actually like the more gritty, realistic tone of Final Fight. Not this version of it, however. This early mid-2000s idea of grit and trying to make it street is feckin' dire. I'm also not saying that I want it to be ultra-realistic and grim. I feel like there's a nice middle ground. As it stands, Streetwise still has a feel of Final Fight. A different take, yes, but I feel Final Fight still resides within. Until Glow. I can't get to say anything positive about Streetwise's interpretation of the fucking Final Fight universe with this trash lording above it. A straightforward affair, brawl from left to right and fight a boss at the end of the level, with each level having its own theming based around city districts. A series of hubs that once unlocked are accessible at any time. Players can mainline the game or choose to wander these areas populated by side quest givers, shops and delinquents. Each hub has a unique theme that's based around city districts. What we have here is expansion and adaptation. Whilst you could easily populate arcades and sell games at a full price with the brevity and simplicity of Final Fight up to the mid-90s, that proposition started to lose favour around the time of the N64 and PlayStation 1. In the early 2000s, games that fit that mould could get derided for it, rightfully or wrongfully. Still, when it comes time for a new Final Fight, it couldn't simply be what it once was. That is the need for expansion. The adaptation, however, comes in the form of market trends. The collective thought of publishers everywhere, I was going to say at the time, but it still happens today, hey, that Grand Theft Auto was pretty popular, ain't it? Which led to a plethora of GTA wannabes. Couple this with the abundance of dark and edgy media, with numerous game franchises not so much bending over backwards as shattering their spine to get a piece of the grit pie. Ugh. And you get a Streetwise. These are nigh incomparable, I know. In fact, I wasn't going to include it, but it's too much of a dramatic shift to not address. So instead, let's approach it from a slightly different angle. Does it work? In concept, yes. In execution, no. The idea of turning Metro City into a semi-open world is neat, with each zone having a unique theme which lines up to the original Final Fight. A little bit of a visual progression is present, but only a little. The starting areas are both dilapidated neighbourhoods and the final area is clean. Okay, yeah, that's a bit of a stretch, but I'm trying here, alright? There are two problems with the execution. One, I said the first area, they're all pretty small and simple. Second, they are not interesting to explore. Kyle's Hood contains everything that the game has to offer. It's the biggest map, it has nooks and crannies, it's got jobs, a plethora of side quests, the majority of them in fact. Everything after is smaller, more simplistic and emptier, with Japantown being an uninteresting square with next to no side quests. The maps just aren't utilised in any meaningful way. If this was all they were able to put together for whatever reason, I would have rather had a straightforward level structure with more involved level design. Maybe some are wider and others are more vertical. Say you take something like Kyle's Hood and their objectives dotted around, and you tie those style of levels together with some more linear ones, so you would still be staying true to the franchise's origins, but also expanding upon it. I don't know, I haven't got the answers, I just know that I got something that doesn't feel like a worthwhile endeavour. What is now considered a very basic 2D beat 'em up, with a single attack button, jump, grab, and group management mechanic, where you fight large swaths of enemy types, varied in both look and capabilities. Though simplistic, the combat is enjoyable to engage with, due to the combat system being responsive and satisfying through hit response and sound work. Whilst the enemy variety is wonderful, at times the arcade origins make itself known, as it feels that some of their design was purely to chip away at your health. This mainly becomes a prevalent thought when you arrive at encounters which turn into visual mess of colours and quick attacks. A fairly standard 3D beat 'em up with light and heavy attacks, basic combo strings, and a variety of defensive abilities, where you fight a modestly varied cast and unremarkable design only, as most of your opposition behave nigh identically. The combat system of Streetwise is really fun. It's fast, responsive, varied, has a defensive option for any circumstance, and has satisfying feedback in encounters. Though yes, there is indeed some clunk. The dodge is awkwardly placed and some combo strings require directional inputs that feel like more bother than they're worth, due to tying the directions to Kyle himself instead of blocking them in place. Whilst the combat has some depth, the same can't be said for the opposition that you face, as the majority are content to simply hover around the brawl in progress. It's not until Glow is heavily involved some variety is inserted, and that is not until the end of the game, and even then it is of the typical I'm big, therefore can't be knocked down easily, can knock down easily sort. There's not much to say that isn't readily apparent. The shift from 2D to 3D makes a direct comparison kinda silly. However, even when we remove Streetwise's 3D characteristics, it's easy to see that the combat is a much more evolved form of the beat 'em up genre, with the sole element of Final Fight not being brought over being the death blow. Does Streetwise need the death blow? No, not because the move holds no value. I assign the praises of the mechanic when discussing it. Streetwise doesn't need the death blow because there is no tenacity in your opposition. When firing on all cylinders, Final Fight was out for blood. Streetwise, you'll likely only be felled by the bosses, and I have said plenty on those. Here is a quick boss comparison. In Final Fight, bosses can sometimes be cheap, but are largely fine. Sodom, it's a cheap, dirty bastard. Streetwise, oops, all Sodom, and I guess Weasel as well. For the death blow to be a meaningful mechanic of Streetwise, it would require a complete overhaul, and in my mind's eye of what that game could be, I would actually really like to play it. As I said numerous times, I really like playing Streetwise, but everything that surrounds it is so flat and uninteresting. Both games are the opposite in many ways, but none are more meaningful than here. In Final Fight, you have simplistic mechanics, involved enemies of numerous types, and Streetwise, involved mechanics with simplistic enemies of very few types. Suitable opposition is important. You can give me all the mechanical depth in the world, but if we're using it on glorified training dummies, then there is no real satisfaction nor drive to engage with them. Which is why, over time, Streetwise becomes rather rote. I was improving and gaining new skills, but the opposition stayed the same, leading to every fight, sans bosses, becoming autopilot affairs. Contrast this to Final Fight, where I was improving and the game was throwing more enemy types at me and making unique and challenging encounter combinations. Now, was some of this done purely to try and get some money? Undoubtedly, but that does not make it any less engaging. In the city rampant with crime and corruption, newly elected Mayor Mike Haggard not only wishes for no involvement, but actively wants to put an end to it. As a result, he and his family find themselves the focus of Metro's ruling gang Mad Gear's machinations, as Mike Haggard's daughter Jessica is kidnapped in order to bring Haggard into line. Alongside Cody and Guy, Haggard sets off to put an end to Mad Gear's reign. What we have here is not so much a story, but a premise and an ending, and that's more than fine. Regardless of the fact that Final Fight is an arcade game, and as such narrative certainly isn't the focus, it also doesn't need anything more. Sometimes, it's best to keep it simple. Where's Cody? 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 Drugs. I do not know how, but I feel like we've regressed. In the original Final Fight, there was a clear premise, goal, characters, motivation, and through line. After surmising Final Fight, I turned to do the same streetwise, where I was met by the Baron Infinite, and I said aloud, I don't know. Cutscenes and dialogue are presented regularly, but there isn't really a story here. Things happen, but nothing ever moves forward. Things are said, but nothing is ever really said. I'm not seeing the forest for the trees here. What's the story? What happens? Where's Cody? Did we find Cody? Where was he? Why are we going there? Why are we talking to this person? Why the Bible? What are we doing? What is Dr. Chang? What? Oh. Okay. Instead, that's the spirit, yes, skill, yes, okay. So, in Final Fight, we were dealing with a pretty standard kidnapping plot housed in the attempted corruption of a new virtuous mayor, dealing with big things in a relatively small scale. In Streetwise, you must find your missing brother, who has been kidnapped by drugs. Okay, that's a small and grounded story. Except the drug is magic and makes people into glowy drug zombies and or monsters with heavy body mangling, and is all orchestrated by a mad priest out for revenge and is going about it by creating monsters to make the 4 hours into the apocalypse and wants to end the world. I'm fucking done. Somewhere in Streetwise, Final Fight resides. It's in there, buried beneath the bland and crap. Most of the ideas of Streetwise could make for a great evolution of Final Fight, but outside of the core combat systems, it's one face plant after another with increasing devastation. The concepts are there, the expanded gameplay and moving from linear levels to a mix of linear and small open hubs, but the expanded gameplay came with a very limited variety of opposition, the hubs are just boring after the first area, and the whole game is encased in narrative bullshit.
Bullshit?
Bullshit. Final Fight Streetwise released way back in 2006, so what has the series been up to since then? And what does the future hold for this classic franchise? Fantastic stuff! These days, Final Fight as a series lives on in re-releases. Well, re-releases of the arcade version of the first game, as to my knowledge Capcom hasn't released Final Fight 2 nor 3 as a part of any collection. Whilst the franchise celebrated its 30th anniversary in 2019, it did so in silence, as no obligatory compilation or really anything of note was announced and or said. Final Fight, in spirit, lives on in the Street Fighter series, with more and more Final Fight cast members drifting their way into multiple entries rosters. It's a sad state of affairs, even to someone like me that has no past love or reverence for the series, but Final Fight's fate is one as old as time. We can only hope that one day Final Fight fans have their day, as Streets of Rage fans did theirs. And on that somber note, I shall take my leave. Wherever you are, and wherever you may you have a lovely morning, afternoon, evening, or indeed, night. Thank you for watching, and remember, Dick sexy. Goodbye.